Welcome to a New Life podcast with Pamela Jean, where it's all about empowering women to empower more women. Get ready, friends, to create a new life. And here is your host, Pamela Jean.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to this week's episode of A New Life podcast. I'm Pamela Jean, your host. Thank you so much for being here today. You guys, I am so excited for the guest that I have on today. When I'm looking for people to interview, to bring to this community, I look for people that I find strong, confident, interesting, someone that I feel this community can benefit from, whether it be from their story, their careers, just their mindset. And the person I'm bringing you today, I am just so thrilled with, and I know you're going to love her. So today, friends, I am welcoming Jessica Rose to the podcast. If you are in Tulsa, you will probably know her name. She is a radio DJ here in Tulsa. She has some news to share with us today, but she is a DJ here in Tulsa. I met Jessica for the first time at a mixer that was held through the radio station, and I admired her from afar. She has a quiet confidence about her that I just adore, and I can't wait for you to get to know her. So, Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You're so sweet.
I am here for you.
I find it interesting sometimes. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but when people talk about you, I don't know why it is. Sometimes it's hard for us to believe, like, wow, I really am all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ever happen to you? Like, I don't, it's not that I don't want to believe all those wonderful things you said about me, but, we just go on, we move, we're going. And I don't do things in order for other people to notice, you know?
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes total sense, Jessica. And I think that's why I gravitated towards you in the first place, is I just noticed you were not a attention seeker at these events. And some of these events, people definitely are attention seeking. And I noticed that you were not. You just, like I said, you had a quiet confidence about you that I just admired from afar. And I know we chit chatted a little, but there's so many people there and it's a very high decibel. It's hard to get a chance to really have a
Really?
good
Yeah.
conversation. But I think, women are raised for some reason to be humble to a fault, like too humble that, oh, that's embarrassing. Don't say those things about me, that you just
Mhm.
can't take a compliment. And what I learned through coaching and therapy and all the work that I've done on myself, Jessica, is when you learn to take a compliment, it is one little step towards loving yourself and loving you exactly the way you are. And when you can learn to give an authentic, honest, pure compliment to someone else, that is another just direction of how confident you are as a person, that you're able to see the beauty in other people all day long. And that I agree. Sometimes it feels embarrassing. It's like, oh my gosh, stop already.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Well, tell us, who are you, Jessica? Where did you grow up? Share about your family and just dive on into whatever you feel comfortable sharing with us today.
Well, I would describe myself as someone that's a child at heart. I am very playful, silly, loving. All of that tends to really happen kind of like in the inside of my home amongst my family, as far as being very playful and silly and around my friends. Um, I'd also say I'm a solid friend. I'm a daughter that rarely lets her mother uh, worry less. Um, I'm a loyal cousin. I'm a top
Mm,
producer. I have a hustler's mentality,
mm.
and I'm a really, really good mom, and I will not
Oh,
let
love
anyone
that.
take that away from me.
Mm.
It
And
won't
you know,
even matter if my kid later on says, "Oh, well, I need to see a therapist because of you," or "This has happened," because that's fine. I am still gonna look at myself as a really, really good mom.
Oh, I love that you said that, because that is the job that mothers have that has the most pressure. And you feel like, I don't want to screw my kid up. If I make a mistake, I'm going to mess them up forever. But you know what, Jessica, here is reality. Chances of your child needing therapy, like my children needing therapy at some point, is very likely. That
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the kind of mother you were or are and the kind of mother that I am. That is just kind of a passage of life, is going through those struggles and knowing that, your son has a solid foundation and a solid supporter on his side. And that is really all he needs. But thank you for saying that, because I think mothers of all ages are so hard on themselves. Of, if you're a young mom, it's, am I doing it right? I don't want to screw up my
Right.
kid. And I
Mhm.
know your son is in his teenage years, and the teenage years are hard. They're just really, really hard. I'm on the other end of it. My kids are all grown and relatively independent, mostly independent. And I'm thinking, geez, do I have any regrets? Did I do it all? Did I do it right? Did I do what I needed to do when I had the opportunity to do it? So I think every stage of motherhood brings you into a conversation of questioning yourself and your abilities. But I'm so glad to hear you say that I'm a good mom, darn it.
Yes, I am. I really am, and I know for a fact I've made mistakes, or
Yeah.
whether they're mistakes or maybe you just didn't, you know, w tried something and it just didn't work, whatever it may be, but I know that the steps I've taken and the decisions I've made have truly been to benefit my kid. Um, and we have a really good relationship. So yeah, I'm never gonna let anybody take that from me. I'm a great mother because I was raised by a really good mom as well.
Oh, I love to hear that. So, Jessica, what led you to a career in radio? Because, I would think it's a primarily male dominant profession. How did you land there, and how long have you been a DJ?
Um, so how I landed there, I radio was probably a calling for me.
Mm,
Um, it really Our relationship started in LA traffic in my mom's car. Um, my mom worked for a company called World Savings and Loan for quite a long time. She climbed the ladder. She ended up being like a district manager at some point. So we were always driving from here to there, going to go see my family in Highland Park. My mom really worked very smart to raise me in the suburbs. So we spent about an hour in traffic to Highland Park to go be with family on the weekends and stuff. So during that time, we're stuck in traffic, and that was 80s, 90s, so it was clearly the radio. Then eventually you have your tape cassettes and your CDs, but mainly my mom always had it on the radio.
mm,
So, listening to music, listening to even the commercials, and I loved the radio personalities as well. I didn't know it at the time that I was gonna be in it, that I was
mm,
gonna be on it. Um, but I found myself kinda mimicking the commercials. I found myself, feeling like the radio personalities were an extension of my family. So there were certain personalities like Casey Kasem, Big Boy, Kool-Aid, Baker Boys, Delilah. These are all, at that time, LA radio personalities, because back then we syndication kind of came around, but you didn't have social media, you didn't have streaming services. So that's kind of, where I guess got the, what is it, got the bug, the bite, however
yeah,
they phrase that.
yeah, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, and then I went to, so after high school, my mom, she's so terrific. She really is great and very patient. Her plan for me was to attend a 4-year university after high school.
Mm.
Even with all the grades and the report cards that I brought home, she still
She was holding out hope.
she really was. She had the savings for it and everything.
Oh
My
my
goodness.
gosh. Bless her
Um,
heart.
yes. And it just wasn't for me. But she did advise me, at least go to the community college, take some prerequisites, but what I want you to really take is a bunch of different classes to see what you might be interested in. So if you're interested in photography, psychology, whatever it is, take an intro class to that field. Um, so I took her advice, but in the beginning, I was really just taking the prerequisites and I kept avoiding the intro to broadcasting class. I kept avoiding it. Something I didn't have the confidence back then, I guess you can say. It was probably 2 semesters probably passed, and I finally took it, and on the first day, it was a woman who was, teaching the course, and she said that she worked for news talk radio in LA, and I found that very fascinating that I was being taught by someone who actually does the job. 'Cause
Mm,
that was probably my biggest frustration in school is, and granted, elementary and middle school and high school is gonna be very different than college. Those teachers are teaching various different subjects from elementary, middle, and high school. Um, so there's no some of them didn't have specialties.
mm,
So that was my frustration with my education early on is like, no, I want to be taught by somebody who actually does it or who lives it or, who's in it. So when I
right.
finally got that in that intro to broadcasting, I was hooked. And on that first day of class, she asked everybody, introduce yourself, let me know where you see yourself in radio, whether it's in front of the mic or behind the mic. And it was my turn and I said, I would love to be behind the mic, helping in the background, yada, yada. And after class, she asked me to stay. And she said, um, I don't think you need to be behind the mic. I think you need to be up on the mic. And I'd like to have a conversation with your parents if they're available. And that really threw me off because it's college. I'm
Mm,
thinking, I'm over 18. What is she
right.
talking about? What does she need to talk to my parents about? But I told my mom, hey, the intro to broadcasting lady, Tammy Trujillo, she wants to talk to you. So she did. She talked to my parents and suggested that I attend radio. It's an Academy of Radio and TV Broadcasting, and it was in Huntington Beach, California. So my mom and we went to go look at the school, and she signed me up that day. And neither one of us regretted it since.
What a great story. And I think, Jessica, for you to be so in tune with yourself, to know that 4-year college is not for you, and that's okay. I think sometimes there's a stigma with, oh, you didn't go to college and you don't have that 4-year degree, you just went to a trade school. I think there's a little
Right.
bit of an unnecessary stigma there. But I think when you know,
Mhm.
you just know you know. And I didn't go to a 4-year college either because I knew that was not for me.
Yeah.
I knew that was not for me,
No.
and I don't regret that. I don't regret not having that 4-year degree, and it doesn't sound like you do either.
I don't, and as you brought up, trade schools and stuff and that I've been to one, it's really interesting how kind of my life has unfolded because there's a part of my radio career where I had taken a break and actually got into higher education working for
Oh,
trade schools. So, not only did I attend one myself, which I benefited from, and I also worked at one to help other people find their career paths. So I am 100%, I back trade schools 100%. And with
that's
that,
go
sorry,
ahead. Go
I
ahead
was
and
gonna
finish.
say, with that being said, I also have a great advice on when you're looking at trade schools, because even though I back them, I still think you should do your research.
Agreed. That's just so awesome. So how long have you been a DJ?
Oh gosh, off and on for about, I wanna say it's been 15 years now, and I took an unintentional break in the middle of that career that I try not to live in woulda, shoulda, couldas,
Mhm.
but I do often think, or not often, every now and then it'll pop up. I wonder what would have happened if I never took that break, because I
Mm.
felt like I missed a lot. It was a break right as social media was introduced.
Oh, wow.
So, when I came back to radio, there was a whole nother aspect to it where they weren't just looking for the voice and the personality. Now it's the personality times 10 because you have to be a personality on all of these
Mm.
platforms. That's, I'd say, one of the biggest differences between radio when I first started to when I got back into it in 2017.
That is so fascinating because before, I guess before social media, you were just the voice behind the radio. You were just the voice. But then when you had to be the face, the voice, the personality, you had to be everything. I bet that was a huge learning curve and transition for everyone in the industry.
Definitely, and there were a lot of people in the industry who, "I'm not gonna do it. No,
Right.
I'm not gonna do that. No, social media is not gonna, that's temporary. I'm not gonna
Mm,
do that. I don't wanna learn that. That sounds like a lot of extra work." Like, there
mm,
was a lot of people pushing back from that.
I
But
bet.
then there was the other side where they went with it, and they're thriving.
That's so interesting because when you determine you're going to be a TV news anchor, you know what you've signed up for. You know
Mhm.
it's everything. But as a DJ, I think there is a bit of an anonymous factor that, you're somewhat anonymous. You could be out in public and no one would actually know who you were until you
Right.
spoke. Then be like, "Hey, I know that voice."
Yep.
Whereas you cannot be anonymous anymore with social media. That's so interesting. That's
Yeah.
great. So I think I already know the answer to this, but I want the audience to hear it. You are unapologetically you. I knew that about yourself when I first met you. I don't know how long that ago that was, but years ago, probably a couple years ago.
Yeah, couple.
I knew that about you even before I got to know you. Who do you credit the confidence and that tenacity that you have? Because you walk the walk, you are who you are, but you have very healthy blinders on. Who do
Mhm.
you credit that? Because that's not a quality that comes easy to a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's not easy when you actually are living it as well. It can be sometimes, and I don't know if people would agree with me or not, and I really don't care whether they would, but sometimes it's a burden to be unapologetic, to be confident, um, to walk in your purpose. Sometimes
Mm.
every now and then it can be a burden a little bit, but I would credit I excuse me. I would credit my mother, number 1, for sure. Um, and then number 2, Tupac.
Oh my gosh. Okay, did not see that one coming. I saw mom coming, but not Tupac.
And it's interesting how my mom, I mean, most people will who know me know I have a close relationship to my mom, and they would obviously know the answer to that question as well. They'd be like, "Oh, her mom." But, what no one knows is I was actually very, I guess jealous would be the right word. I was jealous of my mom when I was younger.
Oh, interesting.
She was, through my lens, she was too perfect. And I
Oh.
felt at that time when I was a child that I would never live up to all of her greatness. She had it 2 together, and for some reason, I looked at that as I was jealous, I didn't wanna be that perfect, and this had nothing to do with my m I now that I'm saying it out loud and I'm feeling the warmness that's taking over right now in my body, it wasn't anything that my mom did, that had to do with me, more of my personality,
Mm.
um, because I am stubborn. I am competitive. A lot of those qualities come from probably from the both my mother and my father, but also I do believe in my astrological sign, Aries. So I'm very much, a fire flame.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I had a jealous streak about me when I was younger.
that is so interesting. So you talk about um, what your purpose is. You mentioned that a couple times. What is your purpose?
My purpose is to connect people to resources. Um, and I think all of that kind of came into play when I took my break in radio and got into higher education. I realized that a lot of my radio skills were transferable. Um, and they played out, all of those strengths played out as an admissions rep I worked for Le Cordon Bleu and for a nursing school. But Le Cordon Bleu was the school that gave me the opportunity to work as an admissions rep and build a really good career in higher education. And a lot of those skills came out. And I realized I could be happy outside of radio, that my happiness wasn't just towards one industry or one job.
Mm,
And I really enjoy connecting people to resources, whether it be people to services. Um, Even with radio, that was my thing too. But I love hearing what people want to do with their lives. And when they're ready to say, I wonder how I would become this, or I wonder how I want to buy a house and fix my credit, or whatever it may be. When they're ready, I'll be like, hey, so this is what you do. I found this information for you, blah, blah, blah. I'll find the information. They'll still have to walk it. But I am very much, my happiness, my purpose is watching others bloom into who they are.
mm, that is good. I think your ability to communicate is absolutely your superpower. And your ability to teach others to be good communicators, good listeners, good insightful thinkers. That is such a gift. And I think we can all agree our society needs more training, teaching, influence in being good communicators because somewhere through devices and social media, we've all lost our minds when it comes to communication and
Mhm.
healthy communication. And I think you just have stepped into something that is truly a gift that you have, that not everyone possesses what you have. And having that ability to communicate well and teach communication, that is fantastic.
Thank you. I really owe a lot of that to my family, my mother's side of the family. When I say my family, that's mainly my mother's side of the family. She is the oldest of 8 kids, and they moved they moved to the US from Leon, Mexico when she was 12. Um and throughout their life, they have just been a very supportive and loving family. All My mom is kind of that leader of that pack. She went to college. Her brothers and sisters followed kind of that same path. They're all college educated. They're entrepreneurs. Some are teachers, principals, police officers, and I've learned from them about helping. We
Mm,
help our family. And I didn't realize until I went out into the real world as an adult that not everyone was gifted with a beautiful family that will support you and encourage you and motivate you. And I think I got my real taste of that when I worked at Le Cordon Bleu. A lot of people who were coming there to be chefs, and hearing part of being an admissions rep is you listen and you try to find the person's why. Um, because you want to make sure, at least I know I do as an admissions rep working for trade schools, I want to make sure that this person actually can see themselves doing this job. It's a personal investment that they're making. 20 grand, 25 grand, depending on the school, depending on what the skill trade you're trying to learn. Um, so I really took the time to try to understand people's why and where did you come from and so forth. And I discovered that a lot I would see mainly people in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, every now and then someone in their 50s. And what I found what I found was this individual person really just needed somebody to encourage them and motivate them and just basically tell them, "You can do it. You can do it. If you wanna do it, you can do it." And that's the family that I came from, is they're very supportive. "What is it that you like? What do you wanna do? Here's where you go." So, I I guess my purpose was kind of just always there, and I was the student and just
Mm.
kind of soaking all that in, and yeah, and it just as I got older, it was heartbreaking to hear these stories from people that they had no one telling them that they can do it, and
Mm.
they're there right now to wanna become a chef, and I know I can do this, and I'm like, "Yes, you can do this." And so and every now and then I just think, "Wow, it's amazing to see where somebody could have been had they just had a resources or people telling them that, 'Yes, you can do this.'"
I think there's so much power to what you just said of people just needing to hear from someone else that you can do this. This is possible for you. And that feeds into my coaching as well, because I want to be the champion and the cheerleader, if you will, for the people that just can't see themselves
Mhm,
in the way that I know that they have the opportunity and the possibility and the abilities. Just like, oh my gosh, there's nothing you cannot do if if you put your heart and your mind to it and have that confidence and take the first step. It takes one step forward and you
mhm.
can accomplish anything.
Absolutely, and also be realistic with yourself. Are there gonna be challenges? Of course. Are there gonna be times where it feels like, "Oh, why did I do this?" or blah, 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 or this happened, or my car doesn't start, or whatever it may be.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you stop, and, have I always let people, well, I don't let people, but I always suggest to people, have your pity party, have it
Yep.
24 hours, and then boom, get back out there.
Exactly. Yeah, that is so true. Because you know what? No matter, I know mindset is such a big talking point right now. Just change your mindset. It's your mindset. Okay, well, it is. That's true. But when you shift your mindset, that does not mean bad things don't follow you.
Yep,
When you shift your mindset, you're still going to have bad things. They're not going to just go away. But what happens is you learn to deal with them differently. You allow yourself that time to have the pity party. Okay, I'm going to be upset until noon. When noon is here and gone, I'm done. I'm over it. I move forward. Allow the feelings that you have to feel, but then move forward. Don't stay stuck in them. And that's definitely a choice. You are so fortunate to have the family support and the upbringing that you did, Jessica. That is phenomenal.
thank you. Yeah, I definitely didn't do a lot of things by myself, and my confidence really does come from my mom. I mean, I just used to watch her, like, run the show.
I
It's
love it.
really interesting as I've gotten older and see all of these issue I am Pamela Jean, I am extremely fortunate, and sometimes I don't know why I am, but I am a student and I take notes, and I didn't realize that women had a lot of the problems that they do, as far as, like, moving forward in their jobs, or I and again, being very fortunate, God gifted me a giant's body. I'm 6'3". So rarely did I have men talking down to me as I grew up. So, and I came from a family where my mom was, again, the oldest of 8. Out of those 8, there's 6 women,
Mm,
and then there's my grandmother. So I was raised by women, and I I don't know the place where I have to ask a man's permission.
mm,
So I'm unaware of all of that. I don't, um I guess the old school way is, you would cater to your man, and that's not a bad thing. I think serving your husband's plate is fine. That I don't have any, I mean, I don't see that as an issue, but it also, I see that as being like there's a predominant male that runs the show or whatever. I don't come from that. So it's to see women achieve things and go for things is not new news to me.
mm,
And when I do come across other women who where that isn't, they weren't raised that way or whatever. I don't even know if I was raised in a way, but I just kind of like to remind women that you're so capable, man or woman. Just
mhm.
as human beings, we were created to be able to do the impossible.
Hmm, that is very insightful, which I think for me explains your quiet confidence, that you don't know how to not be exactly like that.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of, I mean, that's, I know that sounds silly, but that sounds so simple. But so many women, you are right, they have been um, dealt not the best hand of upbringing and not the best influences. And when, if you're raised by strong women, you're going to be a strong woman, period. That's just how it works. If you're raised in trauma and chaos and all of those things, that's the type of woman you will become, and then we'll have to work to change that narrative. You can change your story, but it'll take work. You will come at it from a different direction.
Right.
But now, just hearing that conversation, I fully understand how I came to that conclusion of your quiet confidence and why you are the way you are, and you just navigate with a healthy blinders on. You know, we all need to have blinders and stay in our lane because that's protection, that keeps a
Right.
guardrail around us. But to see where yours came from, I think that's really fascinating, and I think that just speaks into the young mothers, the mothers of teenagers. You can change that conversation for your daughters and your sons. You can change that conversation. They don't have to become who you are. You can shift and change that just by doing some of the things that Jessica, you shared you experienced growing up.
Yeah. And it's so true. You can change. Again, going back to my mom.
Oh, she
Uh,
must be an amazing woman, I tell you.
she really is.
Oh,
But I truly, because of her, I believe people can change. Um, and I also believe that your circumstances or your past don't have to dictate your future or who you are today as well. And she is the proof of that. This is my mother was raised with an alcoholic father, a narcissistic mother,
mm,
and my mom and her siblings are nowhere close to either of those personalities. They are not alcoholics, they do not abuse alcohol, um, and they don't manipulate
mm,
other people into getting what they want. Um, so when I come across and through my life, friends, ex-boyfriends, um, people are like, "I'm this
of that.
because so and so raised me this way," or because of that, or "I'm alcoholic because my dad was an alcoholic." Mm, that might be true for your story,
Mm-hmm.
but you do realize you can change that because my
Yes.
mom did that. I mean, She gave me a completely different childhood than she had ever experienced.
And she made a decision to break that family cycle, that dysfunctional cycle, the family curse. Some people refer to it as a family curse. She made a conscious decision to break that cycle in her own life. And by doing so, as the eldest of the family, she clearly paved the way, showed the rest of her siblings the roadmap to do the same in their lives.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
because of that, when you're a product of someone who broke a generational curse, you also have a responsibility. And I'll give you a great example of that. My son's father. Um, let's see. I don't know how. I think my son was little past 1 years old. The relationship with his father and I, it had gotten bad. He had cheated. I forgave, but I still kind of like knew that he probably didn't clean that up. And so at that point, I look at it like this. A woman knows when she's done, and she's probably done with you a year before she actually cuts it off. And because that's at least what I experienced.
I would say that's very accurate,
Yeah.
or maybe
So, like,
even longer than a year before, but
yeah. But during that year where I kind of was like, do I return and ask for a refund? What do I do here? Um, we started arguing, and now the argument is happening in front of my child.
Mm, that's
My
such a game changer.
It is, and it's a game changer when you come from, your so my mom divorced my dad when I was 2 years old. So I've never came from a family where people fought like that, in public or around the kids. I don't even really know the whole deal about my parents and their breakup. Um, so when I'm in the kitchen having an argument with my son's father and see my little 1-year-old crawl around from the couch to be like, because obviously he's like, "What's that noise?" So he's crawling around or coming around the sofa and peeking at us, and I see his face.
Mm,
That's when me as somebody, I have to be responsible now because I'm like, I didn't grow up around that. Who am I
mm,
to restart a cycle that never existed in my childhood, maybe existed in my mom's. So I knew right then and there with my kid coming around the corner I knew right there when I saw my son's face that the relationship was truly over. And I had literally ended it at that moment and
oh my
said,
gosh, wow.
"Gotta go." Because I wasn't raised around parents who argued. My mom, I didn't even realize, but my mom really did break not only generational curses within her own family, but maybe even my dad's.
Mm,
My dad is a whole nother subject. So, yeah, even though your mother, whoever it is, your guardian, whoever it is that broke that generational curse, you have a responsibility to continue to keep that broken, keep that out
my
of the picture.
gosh, that was so insightful and so powerful, Jessica. And I know there are women that are going to be listening to this that are going to find such great value. So thank you for sharing that little
Um,
private piece of your world, because that was that was private. So thank you for being
yeah,
transparent and willing to share, because I know that will impact people. So, where do you want to make the biggest impact in the world? As if what you just said wasn't a big impact, but if you, because that was really phenomenal. But when you are this elderly woman celebrating, the 90th birthday, like your grandmother just did, when you look back at your life, where is the biggest impact that you would like to leave and have in the world?
that it's a big question, but maybe I'm looking at it too big. Because when I think about the biggest impact I want to have in the world, I see it as something so very it's not big. It's something very small to me, and that is working on myself,
Mm.
and also the responsibility I have in raising my son. I feel like that's the biggest impact I can have on the world, is starting one one small thing at a time. And it's it's starting with me. What are some things that I need to work on or change? And those are things that I have done these last 10 to 15 years of my life. Um, as soon as my son was born, I then saw a mirror and I could finally see myself and I could hear myself. That was the biggest thing, is being able to hear myself, and hearing it in the way like, "Ooh, that really didn't sound, you really
Mm.
do sound like you're selfish," or "You do really sound like you're disrespecting your mother and the tone that you're using." Um, so I really looked at it like having my son and having this mirror in front of me, is I saw a lot of great things about me, and then I saw a lot of things that I could improve on.
Mm.
And I've been doing that. And at the same time, I'm raising another human being. So that's where my impact is in in continuing to raise myself now, because my mom raised me and now I have to raise myself the rest of the way. But
Right.
that's the impact I feel like I can have on the world, is making sure that I'm healthy and making sure that my son is healthy as well, mind, body, and soul. And then we're capable at that point, we're capable to be able to now reach out to others.
But Jessica, you said that this seems like such a small, little, tiny thing to say, how do you want to impact the world? But it's really not. If everyone had that mindset of, I'm going to be the healthiest version of myself so I can be a good example, a good influence on other people, that when people see me and meet me, they are interested in being different and having a different life. So if more people were concerned about being the best version of themselves in a healthy way, and then raise our children to be the best version of themselves, we're creating a whole new generation of kind, loving, compassionate, capable young people that I think that's missing so much. We've somehow ended up with a generation where there's a lot of families just hand the kids a screen, hand them a device, and they get sucked into a device and they don't know how to communicate. They have no confidence. They don't believe in themselves at all. But the impact you're going to have by working on you and being the healthiest version of yourself, as well as teaching your son to be in that same mirror, oh my goodness, I think that is a huge impact in the world. That's not small at all.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I'm going to shift a little bit and ask you a few rapid fire questions, okay?
Okay. I'll try to
So
give rapid fire answers.
we'll see how you do. What is one thing no one in the world knows about you?
Oh gosh. I tell people everything about me.
You're like, I'm an open book. There's nothing.
Yeah. My mom always told me, she's like, "You can tell me anything, honey." And then as I got to be an adult, she was like, "Stop telling
I,
me."
there's some things I don't want to know.
Um, I guess one thing that the world doesn't know about me, I guess my outlook on success. Um, I have a good example. I met this gal named Storm when I was working on the radio here in Tulsa, and she called in to win a prize. Um, while I was taking her information off the air and getting her information in the system for some tickets, she starts telling me that, she's really happy because she's celebrating, I think it was her 1 or 2-year sobriety. And so I was like, "Awesome." And then she had said that she just moved to OK, Oklahoma. And that she had, I mean, I got the whole lowdown about her. She was recovering um, from her past, doing time. I mean, she had a rough upbringing. And so while she's talking, I was looking and she said she was having a tough time finding other moms. She's a single mom, yada, yada. I was telling her about, the Facebook mom groups. And I was looking up other resources and stuff. And I said, hey, do you mind if I send you a couple of resources that I found? She's like, sure, go ahead. So I sent them to her. A few months later, she calls to win other tickets. And she says, I just wanted to tell you, thank you for all those resources, but mainly at the fact that I told you about myself and you didn't judge me. Instead, you helped me with resources. And she said, thank you so much for that. And I got caught up on that she was doing well and okay, that she um, was really cleaning up a lot of her background, really just trying to move forward in life. That was her update. So, my
Mm.
outlook on success, I find her to be a very successful person. Pamela Jean, I do not need to wait and see where she is 10 years from now. I don't need to see that because she is a success story right now.
Today.
Every day that she gets up and decides to move forward and away from what used to hold her back, that's success. And that's something that people don't know about me is, yeah, I mean,
How
Rihanna's
you view
successful,
success. I love that.
Taylor Swift is successful, that's great, they have lots of money, that's wonderful, but somebody right now in the middle of trying to improve themselves every day to me is a success. Again, I don't need to know where Storm is 10 years from now.
You already know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of 10 years from now, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Ugh. I don't
That
like
was a
these
good segue,
questions.
by the way.
I don't like the 10-year question because I don't plan that far ahead, and that is probably
Mm.
a fault of mine. My mom often tells me that I really need to be putting my 10 to 15-year plan together. Um, where do I see myself? A success finally, I hope to see myself as a successful entrepreneur. I am
Mm.
tired of giving my all for all of these companies that I've worked for. I'm really tired of it.
Oh,
And it cannot be that hard to be a good manager with a team that will produce for you. It cannot be that difficult. And I hope to be a successful entrepreneur and really get an idea of what it is to be a leader. I wanna be
well,
healthy, I mean, I'm obviously will be healthy, and I wanna be in good wealth and good company, and I just wanna I hope to, in 10 years, be assisting my son in his entrepreneurial, journey.
I love that answer. And you will be a successful entrepreneur in 10 years. I feel that. I believe that. And now the universe knows it too. You will be a successful entrepreneur. And I'm telling you, when you're ready to start that journey, you have my number.
Okay.
let's let's jump in
Thank
with both
you.
feet and build your foundation. And I just want to speak into you a little bit, Jessica, whatever it is that is on your heart, whatever it is that's there, don't wait. Do it. Start today. Start after we hang up our call. Start first thing in the morning and start working towards whatever that is, because you have a dream on your heart. I know that you
I
do.
really do.
I can feel it, and I'm waiting for you to, whenever you're ready to share it, I'll give you a platform to share it. But the thing is if it's on your heart, and I can tell it's been there a while. I could tell when you started talking about pouring everything into working for a large company and not being um treated well, appreciated, acknowledged, and not that I need, my back patted, I don't need that. But when you're
Right.
blood, sweating, and tears for someone else, having just a little bit of, wow, that was great, good for you, a little accolade is very important. We all need that. I don't care who you are. And so, what you've got something on your heart, girl, you do not let it sit there. You move forward today sooner than later. And I have no doubt in 10 years that you will be a successful entrepreneur.
Thank you.
hmm I absolutely believe in you. You have all the skills. You have everything
I
that you need.
do.
You
I
you do.
do.
You're a visionary. I can tell just from our conversations. You have the confidence, you have the intelligence, and you have the work ethic. And it's something that's coming from your heart. That is a dream that is inside of you. If it is inside of you, it has to come out eventually. So
Right.
don't
Yeah.
delay, don't put it off, just start. Whatever that looks like, just start.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, one final question for you. What advice would you give a woman standing in her way of getting started living out their life's purpose?
I would start by saying, wow, you've got options. I think a lot of us don't realize we have options. Even when it feels like you're backed into a corner, you have options. Um, and act on those options. Um, trust trust that gut, trust that intuition. I have never betting on myself, I have never lost,
Mm.
ever. I have never experienced sadness, regret when I bet on myself. So my advice would be bet on yourself, be realistic in knowing that it will be tough. You will have bumps in the road. Um, and how you were just telling me to start today, I would also give the advice of that starting today is going to be very different from how it looks a year from now. So, whatever it is that you're starting, for example, let's say this podcast, your first episode is going to sound very different than that episode a year from now. And that's a really great thing. So, it's okay if everything isn't perfect on the first try. It's you just keep going.
Well, that was excellent advice and a perfect way to end our conversation today, Jessica. I appreciate you so much for coming on the podcast today and for being so transparent and just really uplifting and motivational to the audience. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and thank you for your advice and knowing that I have something on my heart and it's been so heavy. I do need to free it and let it blossom and let it
Yes, you
bloom and
do.
come into fruition because it's there and I keep pushing it back.
Yes, and you know what? It's not going away. It is just not. It's like when your kids are little and they come up and tap you on the leg and, "Mommy, can I have this? Mommy, can I have this?" They go away, then they come back, "Mommy, can I have this?" It doesn't go away, and that's how that dream is. It's tapping you from the inside saying, "Hey, Jessica, owner of this dream, you need to let me out." Because if I'm serious, if it is inside of you, it will come out whether you think you're ready or not.
Right.
And you just as well, take the first tiny step. And I always tell my clients, how do you eat the big elephant in your life? One tiny bite at a time,
At a
one
time.
step at a time. You're not going to eat it all at one time. It's going to take
Right.
one little nibble and just move forward.
So true. Thank you, Pamela G.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And friends, thank you for listening to this episode. I know that you were inspired listening to Jessica and having her just share her life and her story. She is truly an inspiration. And I'm so proud to have her as a guest on the episode. And friends, thank you so much again for joining me. I know that you have so much to do in your day, and I appreciate you sharing some of your time with me. And I will see you next week.
Thank you for joining us today on a New Life podcast. We will see you next time.